What is up, guys? Welcome back to another UFC prediction video. This week we got UFC 316 Merab Dvalishvili versus Suga Sean O 2. Pretty good card overall, and without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get right into the full card predictions. First fight on the card, we got Mederos versus Mark Choinski. Now, Mark Choinski is stepping in on short notice. Mederos was supposed to fight Balaji Oki last weekend, so he's fighting the week after against a short notice guy. Look, I'm going to be picking Mederos here. He's a well-rounded fighter, pretty good defensive grappling, showed that last time out versus Austin Hubbard, had some pretty good get-ups, and he has good striking on the feet, good cardio, trains out of Factory X. Decent fighter here, and I respect his game. I think he's going to be able to get a pretty clear decision, or maybe a TKO. Actually, in fact, I'll take Mederos to win this via third round TKO. I think he's just going to be able to put a lot of cardio pressure on Mark Choinski, who I'm sure is a good fighter, fights out of the Anthony Pettis promotion, undefeated guy, but I just don't think he's going to have the cardio to last in this spot. Pretty similarly to Michael Aswell, who stepped in versus Balaji Oki. Aswell's a good fighter, but you saw that he just didn't have the cardio to last a full 3 on short notice. So yeah, give me Mederos, third round TKO. Next fight on the card, we got Ashmouz versus Salkilld. Salkilld, jumped on the scene pretty recently. He's looked pretty impressive, got a good decision win on the Contender Series, and then in his UFC debut, just absolutely starched Ansel Jubilee. So pretty impressive. He's a well-rounded fighter. He has submissions, and he also has good wiry striking on the feet, good Muay Thai. He's got a good right hand down the pipe. Ashmouz, he's pretty crafty, underrated fighter. He's pretty inactive, but, the only loss he's ever taken in his career, he hurt his arm versus Chris Duncan. It was from a kick, but still hurt his arm, lost a decision there. But other than that, he's done pretty well. Knocked out Sam Patterson, and he also got a win last time out against Trevor Peek. Good grappling, good wrestling, solid head movement, tricky striking, good counter shots with some hooks, some overhands. Knocked out Sam Patterson with the overhand. But I'm going to take the safe pick here and take Salkilld. I'm going to take him to win a decision here. I don't think he's going to be able to finish who has pretty good defense and is a pretty good fighter overall, but I think that the height and reach with the striking advantage, he's going to be a lot quicker. And, Trevor Peek had Ashmouz, pinned up against the fence, landing some shots there in that fight. So if Trevor Peek can do that, I think Salkilld, who is a much more talented, crisp, sharper striker, he's probably going to be able to, win the striking exchanges in this one and stay off the bottom, enough to be able to scrape out a decision. So give me Salkilld to win a decision here, 29-28. I think he'll be able to steal around with the grappling, but I really think that height and reach advantage is going to be a problem for him here. Next fight in the card, Jo Sang-Yu versus Saragih. Jo Sang-Yu, undefeated fighter, pretty good, well-rounded as well. And look, Saragih is just not good whatsoever. Came in off the UFC, road to the UFC before he got into the UFC, and since he's been in the promotion, just hasn't done good. Lost to Angela Jubilee and also lost to Weston Wilson, which really shows his level to just absolute bottom of the barrel fighters. Did get a TKO win over Lucas Alexander, which is crazy, because Lucas Alexander is a pretty decent fighter overall. But Saragih, not good just not good overall, not good in any aspect. And I think that Jo Sang-Yu, he has more potential, more momentum, isn't coming off of a finish loss. So yeah, give me Jo Sang-Yu, pretty easy pick there. I'll pick him to win by finish in the first round. Next fight on the card, we got Khaos Williams versus Andreas Gustafsson. Andreas Gustafsson was supposed to fight last week against Trevin Giles, I believe it was. And now he's on this card, similarly to Mederos. Khaos Williams, he is now on this card. I forgot who his original opponent was supposed to be. I think it was Uros Medic. But now we got this matchup. Pretty good fight here. Should be an entertaining one. Khaos Williams, big power in his hands. Freak athlete, very explosive. But, in terms of his technicality, reminds me a lot of a Jamal Hill. Really relies on his power, his athleticism, and just kind of his grit, his toughness. Really isn't too sharp with his technical skills, but, does have good stand-up overall. Andreas Gustafsson, gritty fighter, likes to keep it in close quarters, push you against the fence. We've seen that on the regional scene, gone to war a lot there. And On the Contender Series, really just implemented a heavy clinch game, lots of knees, elbows in the clinch, and eventually in the second round got himself a nasty elbow TKO against the fence. But I think in this fight, a guy like Andreas Gustafsson, who doesn't have good defense, who does get clipped a lot, who does like to go to war, I think that if he does that, early here in the first 2 rounds against Khaos Williams, who can absolutely crack, even though Khaos Williams did get finished up pretty badly last time out, he did have a good win over, who was it? I forget the guy's name. He's a funny, Carlston Harris. He had a very good first round TKO over Carlston Harris. Funny looking character Carlston Harris is. But yeah, Khaos Williams got a big TKO there. He's gotten big TKOs in the past. You think about the Alex Morono TKO that he got. And look, Andreas Gustafsson, he crashes forward in the clinch, kind of sloppily, looking to land elbows, push you against the fence. And I think if he does that, leaving his chin on a silver platter and kind of eating shots to apply pressure, I think if he eats too many shots from Khaos Williams, he is going to go down. I think Khaos Williams can, kind of draw him onto an uppercut, counter him with the overhand as he's kind of crashing in. So yeah, give me Khaos Williams via round 1 TKO here. I think he's going to be able to knock out Andreas Gustafsson, who, he's a good fighter, but that style really just kind of plays into, a big power puncher like Khaos Williams, kind of plays into his skill set. I think Khaos Williams is going to be able to find a kill shot here very early, first couple of minutes of the fight. Next fight on the card, we got Sergey Spivac. He's a great fighter. I'd love to fight him. Versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. Waldo Cortez Acosta, very good TKO win over Ryan Spann last time out. Had a good win over Rebellis to Spain. Nasty TKO over Lucas Bresky. Waldo Cortez Acosta, good boxer. He also has mixed in some grappling in his more recent fights. You look at the Rebellis to Spain fight. There was some grappling exchanges with the Ryan Spann fight. He's been improving in that regard of his game, but Sergey Spivac is a very, very good grappler. You look at his submission win over Marcin Tybura, he's done good work in the past, submission win over Derek Lewis. When he's going against these guys that are very, very talented, Jailton Almeida, Ciryl Gane, these guys that are super athletic, fast, he's always going to struggle in the heavyweight division. He is one of the plodsters, kind of fat, kind of blobby. But Waldo Cortez Acosta, he is kind of, cut from the same cloth, kind of a fat, plotty heavyweight as well. Much better on the feet, but Waldo Cortez Acosta, he's just one of these heavyweights that I could definitely see getting toppled over when he crashes in trying to land a boxing combination. He does have good hands, but Sergey Spivac, he held his own on the feet in his last fight versus Jailton Almeida. Did get TKO'd, but, he had some advantageous positions in the grappling exchanges against Jailton. And I think if he's able to do that, and if he's able to, reverse position and get a submission over a crafty Marcin Tybura, I think he can do the same thing to Waldo Cortez Acosta. If it stays on the feet, he's getting knocked out, but I will trust Sergey Spivac to maybe not be as timid as he was against Ciryl Gane and to go in there with some aggression, get a takedown early, and then find a submission. Because in the heavyweight division, he does have plus submission, in comparison to the skill level at heavyweight. He does have plus submissions. I think he's able to get one here. So I will pick Sergey Spivac to win by a second round submission. Next fight on the card, Brinson Ribeiro versus Azamat Murzakanov. Azamat Murzakanov, very good fighter. Good win last time out versus Alonzo Minifield, I believe it was, on the Corey Sandhagen versus Umar card. Got a very good TKO there. He has a great left hand, good striking on the feet. Short, stocky, powerful, and, undefeated fighter. Pretty inactive, which has kind of held him back in his career, but he's definitely one of the more skilled light heavyweights on the roster. Brinson Ribeiro, he really has overperformed from what we've seen and, what was expected from him coming into the UFC off the Contender Series. Knocked out Bruno Lopez in the first round. Was a huge underdog in that fight. Lost his UFC debut versus Ming Yang Zhang, and I believe he lost to somebody else as well after that, Magomed Gadzhiesulov. But then, bounced back versus Kyle Machado via submission. No, not via submission, via split decision, and then beat Dair Nurgaze by submission. So he's been very, very active, unlike Azamat. He's been very active in the last, 2 years since he's been on DWCS and in the UFC. But Look, realistically, he gets tagged on the chin, doesn't have very good defense. Even in the Caio Machado fight, was eating shots, got knocked out bad by Zhang Minyang. That's not a bad loss to take because Zhang is so high level, but I think that Azamat Murzakanov is just going to be super deadly, super dangerous, and he's going to present a lot of similar problems that a Zhang Minyang can present. I'm going to take Azamat Murzakanov to win this by a first round knockout. And also, these OV fighters, the brothers, they always seem to win. So yeah, give me Azamat, first round knockout here. Next fight on the card, Bruno Silva versus Joshua Van. Bruno Silva, good fighter, well-rounded, solid striking on the feet. I believe he got a very good knockout over, I believe it was Cody Durden. Was it Cody Durden? I have to check. We have to check this, brother. I can't remember. He got a very good uppercut TKO. Yeah, it was against Cody Durden. Got a nice submission win over Tyson Nam before that. Did get finished up by Manel Cap in his last fight, though. But that's not a bad loss to take. Manel Cap, he's been firing on all cylinders recently. He's been looking very good. Josh Van as well. Since his loss to Charles Johnson, he's been putting it together. Good win over Cody Durden himself. And then last time out versus, who was that grappler's name? I forgot the guy's name. Looks like Tatsuro Taira. He's another one of these Japanese grapplers. Rei Sayura looked fantastic against Rei Sayura. Takedown defense, grappling defense was on point, and his boxing, as always, looked like a mini Max Holloway. Insane volume, insane combinations, really good head movement, and cage control. He's just an excellent boxer, implements it into MMA very well. His takedown defense is improving on a fight-to-fight basis. He's tough as nails as well, gets gritty in the pocket. The only time that's really costed him was against Charles Johnson. I think Joshua Van's going to get the job done here. 30-27 decision. He's just going to outclass him for 3 rounds with the hands. If Bruno Silva tries to take him down, Joshua Van's going to be on top of that every day of the week. And I think, on the feet, he literally has like the best strikes, significant strikes landed per minute out of everybody on the roster. The dude throws so much volume. He's so accurate. And I think that on the feet, unless you put him out or you're able to wet blanket him on the ground, it's going to be very difficult to beat this guy. You have to have a power advantage, which Bruno Silva, he does have some pop, but it's not really enough for me to pick him here over Joshua Van. Give me the prodigy Joshua Van to get himself another dominant decision win here. Next fight on the card, Vicente Luque versus Kevin Holland. Look, I just never pick Kevin Holland. I don't like his attitude. I don't like his approach to the fight game. He really just doesn't try. I mean, it kind of cost me last time out because I did pick Gunnar Nelson to beat him. And he got the job done there. Looked decent in that fight, but, that's against Gunnar Nelson, who really just isn't high level. But it doesn't take a high level fighter to beat Kevin Holland. You take a look at most of his losses, they are good names, but he's lost to so many people. You look at the Marvin Vettori loss, Derek Brunson loss, MVP, Jack Della Maddalena, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. The list goes on and on. Rainer de Ritter, Roman Dolidze, Hamzat Shemaev, which isn't a bad loss to take, but he's taken a lot of losses recently. He's able to beat the old heads, which he's kind of supposed to beat. The Gunnar Nelsons, the motherfucking, what's his name, Michael Chiesas, the Santiago Ponzinibbio's, these type of old head fighters that are getting up close to 40. Kevin Holland's able to beat him. But, when he's fighting decent levels of competition, aside from the Mikel Olasejczak win, which was a good submission, but Mikel did not tap, and he did drop Kevin Holland in that first round. So take from that what you will. I don't really rate Kevin Holland very highly. I think he's just an absolute menace and kind of a disgrace realistically. So I'm going to be taking Vicente Luque. I just can't pick Kevin Holland. He doesn't try whenever things go south for him. And look, Vicente Luque, you look back at the Buckley TKO loss, you look back at the Jeff Neal TKO loss, where he really took a lot of damage in those fights. It's not a good look. We know the medical issues that he went through after that, which is bad. Hopefully he has fully recovered from those, but he has gotten 2 good wins since then over RDA and Thimba Garimbo. Really good classic win from him last time out against Thimba Garimbo, knocking him down with the hands, a good 2-3, and then locked up that anaconda choke. I mean, we know the skill set that Luque displays. The win over Randy Brown back in the day, Tyron Woodley, Bilal Muhammad, the knockout there. He has very good wins. We know that Luque can go to war. If his durability holds up and his toughness holds up, and we see normal Vicente Luque, I won't say prime Vicente Luque. I'll just say normal, not gun-shy Vicente Luque. He should get the job done here. So I'm going to pick Vicente Luque, and I'll actually pick him to win a decision here over Kevin Holland. So yeah, give me Vicente Luque. I'll take him to win 29-28. Mario Bautista versus Patchy Mix. Patchy Mix, Bellator champ coming over from the UFC. It's good that he's getting this opportunity. We know he's been very inactive because Bellator, PFL, that whole situation, their champions aren't able to get fights and stay active. It's very unfortunate, but he's over on, where the grass is greener, on the right side of the fence, if you will, over in the UFC. And he's getting a tough matchup in his UFC debut because, look, Mario Bautista is very, very good. He had, kind of a fluke loss to, I believe it was Trevin Jones back in the day, and then the submission versus Corey Sandhagen. But you look at some of the work he's put in recently against Damon Blackshear. You look at the fight versus Jose Aldo. You look at the fight versus Ricky Simone. Those are names that I do respect a lot here in the bantamweight division. And realistically, a win over Blackshear, Simone, and Jose Aldo is just as good as everything that Patchy Mix has done in his career. I mean, the level of competition that Bellator title fights are is like a regular ranked fight in the bantamweight division. So these guys are realistically at a very similar skill set, and I actually think that Mario Bautista is going to get this one done. Patchy Mix, he's good, but at times he can be low output. In his most recent fight against Magomed, was a little bit low output. He does have a good submission game, but I don't think that Mario Bautista is going to get subbed. He got subbed against Corey Sandhagen, but that was after he got flying kneed. He's improved his submission game. He's gotten a lot of subs, over Brian Kelleher, other guys on his win streak as well. His grappling has improved. He can go for the hug him up, clinch him up style against the fence and stall out if he needs to. He's got great volume on the feet. And I think that his stalling and high volume approach is going to be very good against a guy like Patchy Mix, who sometimes will rely on a finish. He will rely on a clutch submission, or he will rely on, a knockdown or something like this to win himself rounds. Mario Bautista, he's a good minute winner. He'll shoot lots of takedowns, he'll throw lots of output, and he'll just be smart. And he's pretty tough as well, isn't very chinny, hasn't gotten hurt on his, throughout his career very often on his way to the top. And, throughout his career, I think the only time he really has been hurt was the flying knee against Corey, and then the time he got TKO'd. So, yeah, I think I'm going to go with the UFC tested guy here. I really do like what I've seen from Bautista, well-rounded in every aspect of the game, great cardio, and yeah, I think he's got everything that it takes to be able to beat Patchy Mix, who, is a Bellator champion, but I think that he's going to get a wake-up call to the UFC level, similarly to Patricio Pitbull fighting Yair Rodriguez. I know it's kind of a different circumstance, different points in their careers, but still, I think Mario Bautista gets this one done, and I think Patchy Mix takes an L in his UFC debut. Next fight on the card, and I'll take Mario Bautista to win a decision. I think it's going to be a very similar fight to the Jose Aldo fight, realistically. But yeah, give me Mario Bautista, 29-28 decision. Next fight on the card, KG versus Joe Sodium. Look, Kelvin Gastelum, he's a good fighter. He went to war with Izzy, had a decent win last time out versus Daniel Rodriguez. He did lose to Joe Pyfer's teammate, Sean Brady. But at this point in KG's career, I just can't take him overly seriously. Just, missing weight all the time, not staying in very good shape. I think he probably had a sigh of relief when the fight got canceled last time versus Joe Pyfer, because I think he knows what's going to happen, and I know what's going to happen. That means, and that is, Joe Body Bags is going to catch a body in round one. He's going to put KG in a body bag. Joe Pyfer, he's an absolute menace. Very well-rounded, incredibly strong. He's twice his size, younger, faster, stronger, more momentum. He's hungrier. Literally has every single advantage in the book. In terms of the cardio, I'm not that worried about it. I think he's going to have learned from the Jack Hermanson fight. And this isn't 5 rounds. It's only going to be 3. And Kelvin Gastelum, even though he used some wrestling back in the day and used some wrestling against Daniel Rodriguez, I just cannot see him using takedowns here against Joe Pyfer. I just don't see that working for him. I think Joe Pyfer stuffs any takedowns coming back from KG. And if anybody is having success with the grappling, I actually think that it's going to be Mr. Joe Sodium. I actually won't be surprised if Joe Pyfer instantly takes him down and subs him up. training very closely alongside Sean Brady. You got to think that they are learning from each other constantly in the training room every single day. And, he does have good submissions. We've seen him get submissions in the past over Abdul Razak Al Hassan. He does have good grappling. And, just such a physical specimen. Super strong, super aggressive. Walks right across the octagon, gets in your face, throws leather. And I'm actually going to take Joe Sodium to win this one by submission. I think he's going to drop Kelvin Gastelum with something nasty, an angry man's, salty man's uppercut, kind of like what he got Barry Ute with. And then I think he's going to sub Gastelum up. I think he's going to get him with, a head and arm triangle, something like this, a Kimura, kind of like Sean Brady did, something like that. Just a brutal brute strength submission, not something slick. It's not going to be a mounted guillotine like Sean Brady got over Leon Edwards. No, it's going to be just a brute strength submission from Joe Pyfer after he drops him. So yeah, give me Joe Sodium to beat the shit out of Kelvin Gastelum here. And it's like Kelvin Gastelum was like getting busted up by pillow punches Robert Whittaker. I think Joe Pyfer is going to absolutely stain him. Co-main event of the evening, Kayla Harrison versus Juliana Pena. Look, Juliana Pena, she had her little fluke versus Nunes, but she ain't that great. Raquel Pennington is just another random chick that, is in the division. Kayla Harrison is juiced to the gills. She is very, very good at grappling, and she is going to smudge her way to a 5-round decision here. No need to look too deep into the weeds on this one. Not even going to waste your time with that one. Pretty easy pick there, Kayla Harrison. She's going to get the job done by decision. All right, we move on to our main event of the evening, Suga Sean O versus Merab Dvalishvili 2. Now, in their first fight, I was very, very confident in Suga Sean O. I thought that he was going to get a very clean KO over Merab Dvalishvili. I thought Merab, he was hittable. Jose Aldo, Peter Yan, they had to get in too close to be able to get off their offense. I thought that O'Malley was going to have a lot of success at range, where Merab wasn't going to be able to change levels as easily. And to a certain extent, that was correct. The fight did play out decently competitive, and some of the things that I said would be there were there. Sean with the switch stance, left hand, the knee up the middle was there. And yeah, look, in terms of the attributes, in terms of what should happen, in terms of the skill set that each of these fighters possess, Suga Sean O should win this fight. He can even win a decision. And, realistically, he can always get the TKO. We know the striking that Suga Sean O has. Nasty front kicks up the middle that can always hurt you. It hurt Merab in the 5th round of their fight, winning him that round. Almost got the finish there. He's got great straight shots. Sneaky knees up the middle, good head kicks. We know Suga Sean O is one of the most dynamic, quick, and electric strikers in the whole sport. He's just a natural talent, very, very speedy, quick, agile, can change directions, at just the drop of a dime. Merab Dvalishvili, on the other hand, is just an absolute alien. Goblin from hell. He's the grittiest fighter on the planet. He has the best cardio in the history of any fucking sport that I've ever seen in my entire life. The guy doesn't get tired. He's in the 5th round with Umar Nurmagomedov, one of the most skilled fighters we've ever seen grace the entire fucking sport. And he's tossing him around, shooting 5, 6, 7 takedowns in the 5th round against Umar fucking Nurmagomedov after winning the last 2 rounds, just dogging it out with staph infection on his leg, with his leg bleeding out. He's bleeding from both eyes, and he's still dogging it out. I mean, this dude is just built different. He doesn't feel pain. He never gets tired. He literally has no quit in him whatsoever. The attributes, the skill sets, it doesn't matter in this fight, because Sean O'Malley, he's younger, he's faster, way better striking. He does have decent defensive grappling. Merab doesn't have finishing potential. He's not going to be able to get him out of there. He has 25 minutes to work, 25 minutes to find a shot, but Merab just will never let you do that. He's going to shoot for your legs over and over again. He's going to disrupt your rhythm. He's going to break you mentally. He's going to make you not want to be in there. He's going to piss you off with the emotes, and that is what has made him the bantamweight GOAT. He's been able to do this to every single style. So many championships, #1 contenders, undefeated fighters. I mean, Marlon Moraes, title challenger, very, very good fighter. fucking Jose Aldo, one of the goats of the sport. Petr Yan, one of the goats at bantamweight. Henry Cejudo, one of the greats of the lighter weight classes, double champion. Suga Sean O, champion. Umar Nurmagomedov, future champion, undefeated fighter at the time. Merab Dvalishvili, he's able to do the same thing to all of these guys who all have different attributes and different idiosyncrasies to their games that could help them beat Merab. Petr Yan, he's got the great uppercuts, the great takedown defense. Umar Nurmagomedov, he's got the submissions, he's got the long-rangey kicks, he's got the Nurmagomedov grappling. Sean O'Malley, he's got the one-hitter quitter power, he's got the excellent footwork, he's got the speed, the knees up the middle. Jose Aldo, best takedown defense ever. Henry Cejudo, Olympic medal wrestling. High fight IQ, very good game plan. Stocky man's build, good calf kicks. None of these guys have been able to have success against Merab because even though he's not great in any one area, all he really has on the feet is the old overhand, just old grumpy man's, angry man's overhand. And, he's got a sloppy single leg. He's got some good takedown entries, good double legs, good control on the mat. He's very good with that headlock position. He's able to get basically everybody into that. The knees to the thigh against the cage. It's just too much to handle because no matter how good you are, no matter what skill set you're trying to implement, it always gets disrupted because he's legitimately just going to shoot at your legs 50,000 times within the fight. I mean, the guy has the record for the most takedowns in UFC history over George St. Pierre. And the dude's just an absolute demon. He's the grittiest fighter in UFC history. I should have never picked against this guy after he beat Petr Yan, and he's sitting there in that arena or that casino, wherever they were at, and he's just sitting there, and, the crowd's leaving. They wanted to see Yan win. I so hungry! I so hungry! I should have known to never pick against this guy again. I think the only fight I've ever picked Merab to win was against Henry Cejudo, and I was very confident that he was going to win that fight. Don't get me wrong. Bet him there at -180, but still, I picked Yan to beat him, picked O'Malley to beat him, picked Umar to beat him. He really has proved me wrong, and, like I said, in the Umar matchup, he was hindered in that fight. He had staph infection going into that fight, got hurt, got cut in the early part of that fight, and he just dogged through it against a harder matchup than O'Malley, because O'Malley just doesn't have the grappling that Umar does. And even if O'Malley, is improved with the takedown defense and, his get-up game is better, at some point, it's just not going to be enough. I think O'Malley's going to lose this fight 48-47 the exact same way that he lost the first one. I think Merab, he's going to win the first round. He's going to come out fast. I think O'Malley's going to win the second. I think he's going to hurt him in the second round. And then I think O'Malley, he's going to just outstrike and do enough with the takedown defense to, edge out 3 or 4, and then he's going to lose rounds 4 and 5. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a 48-47. I think it's going to be a very, very similar fight to the last one. I think that instead of hurting Merab to the body with a front kick, I think Suga Sean is going to hurt Merab upstairs with a punch this time, or a head kick, a left head kick from southpaw. I think that could be something that O'Malley is looking for. I've seen some training footage. I think that the left high kick, which is something that I pointed out last time, I made a very in-depth video about this matchup. The left head kick is something that O'Malley can utilize here to be able to catch Merab. It's very, very open, and it's one of these strikes where, yeah, he could catch the kick, but it's not like a body kick or a leg kick where it's super easy to catch. If you miss, you can kind of get back in stance pretty quickly. You're not closing the distance and getting double-legged like with the punches. I think the left high kick could be there for O'Malley. I'd like to see O'Malley, get the KO because I do like O'Malley's style. I like what he brings to the sport in terms of, the fights in the future. We've seen Merab basically clean out the division, and I don't think that Merab is going to be going to 145 anytime soon. I'd like to see some fresh matchups. I like to see Sean versus Corey for the belt. I like to see Sean versus Umar for the belt. But I think we're going to have to wait a few years for those matchups because I don't think Merab is losing anytime soon. I could legitimately see Merab retiring, not undefeated, but I think I could see Merab retiring without losing again because he's just so OP. He has alien-like cardio, never gives up on himself. You got to put him out to be able to win. And O'Malley's the type of guy to be able to do that. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's just a character difference. It's a mindset difference. O'Malley, you know, he may be more locked in this time. You know, he's not jaying the peen and he's not smoking and everything like this. But, you know, that's in the back of O'Malley's mind. That's in the back of his mind. You know, he's like, I'm giving up all of this. Is it really even going to be worth it? Like, I'm giving up all these, you know, vices and pleasures just to lose again. You know, it's probably adding more stress to O'Malley's mind. I could see that definitely being the case. And Merab, you know, he's not having to change a damn thing. He's been doing the exact same thing since the beginning of his career. Just absolutely grinding, being the hardest worker in the room, and, you know, doing EPO. You know, I don't know for a fact that he's on EPO, but it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, there's really no other explanation to this cardio. But, you know, realistically, I like O'Malley. He's a great fighter, and I really had a heavy bias towards him going into their last fight. But Merab's going to get this one done. 48-47, 49-46. He'll drop a round or two. Sean, he'll have moments. He'll win a round or two, but it's not going to be enough. Merab's going to do the exact same thing as last time. The grappling is just too OP. He has the best takedowns in UFC history, realistically. I mean, he has the most takedowns in UFC history. The grappling threat is just too much to deal with. And even if you're able to defend it, get back up to the feet and do damage, which, you know, Merab's not really doing. He's not doing a lot of damage. It gets to the point where he's just tossing you all over the cage. Rounds 3, 4, and 5 comes, and he's shooting double-digit takedowns in the championship rounds, and there's nothing you can do about it. So, yeah, give me the alien bantamweight goat, Merab Dvalishvili, to get the job done via decision. So, yeah, those are the full card picks. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe. That would mean a lot to me. Have a good rest of your day, and enjoy the card this weekend.